Just picked up another new project off Facebook Marketplace, and it's not in bad condition. Guy wanted 200. I gave him, I think, $1.50 for it. So it's definitely got some issues. You know, the alignment on that sprocket is way off. Got to fix that. Got some wiring stuff here. He says the carb's junk, so more than likely, you know, carb is messed up. Not too big a deal to fix that. I mean, it's just basically a, you know, this is a Briggs. I have to look at it. Let's see who made it. I'll check that out after. Nope, it's a Predator. So I'm guessing this is like the Predator 212 or something. I'll have to look that up. And although it looks like, no, it would have to be the small one. That's too bad. If it was the bigger one, I could probably do a electric start on it too. But you know, you can't complain about the Predator motors. They're pretty good. So it's, you know, hopefully going to be just for shits and giggles, and, you know, tool around a little bit. Maybe I can get my daughter on it. I'm going to have to try to get my daughter to make up a seat bottom. I've got wood, I've got seat foam and black vinyl, so I'll probably have her make up a nice little seat bottom for that. Got to do something with this tire. Probably going to have to see if I can pop it back on the bead, and I'll probably end up green sliming it. So because he says it doesn't hold air, but you know, for the money, everything's there already. You know, it costs a ton more to build one yourself. Tires are pretty decent, so far I can't complain. We'll see as we get into it a little more. You know, hopefully they didn't you know, damage the motor or anything. But that's it. Next project coming up. Well, I got done testing it for spark, plenty of spark. So I decided I'd pull the breather off, start pulling some things, and check to see if it'll run off ether. So I sprayed some starter fluid in it, did it twice. Ran great just off the starter fluid. It's definitely not getting anything from the tank. So I'm going to pull that carb off right now. Probably going to clean that carb. I did order a new carb, and again, a little Chinese kit. It's got the carb, coil, you know, spark plug, filter, all kinds of crap. They come with that, hoses. It's like $17 on Amazon. It's just crazy to not get something like that, just in case you need to pull some parts, or if this carb is really, really bad, and I'd better off just throwing the other carb on. Because you think about it, I mean, it's the Predator motor, Harbor Freight. The whole motor comes out of China. It's probably the same exact identical carburetor that we're getting to throw on there. So so that'll be coming in a couple of days. But I'm going to pull this carb off now to clean it, just to see if I can get it running. It actually runs pretty good. You know, tried out the disc brake over there. That works good. It definitely needs a little bit of adjustment on the front end. That tire is not holding air. I put some air in it, so I am going to green slime that, and then I'm going to pull out that kill switch that was there. I may even put a little ignition switch with a key, just for giggles, just, you know. So, and then wire that in, and I'll end up repainting everything, cleaning up that seat back. Like I said, my daughter will make a seat bottom for me, and once that's done, it'll be a pretty decent little go-kart for somebody. I don't know if it'll be for me. I'm old, but I'm sure I'm going to tool around on it, have some fun before I sell it off, though. Got the seat off right now. this side the weld's holding up. On the other side, the seat back, the welds have cracked and broke on both sides. So I'm going to clean those up. I will re-weld the other side. I may throw in a little bit of weld on here just because if that side cracked, there's a good chance this wasn't welded too hot. So the other thing is I got the tracks cleaned up a bit, and I just sprayed them with some WD-40 just so the tracks worked. And what I'll do is I'll finish cleaning them up and then I'll grease them. And one of them was missing a bolt, so I'm going to put another bolt in here to hold it in place. And then, like I said, all of that will get cleaned up and repainted. And the seat bottom put on. And then it'll be nice to get easy access in here to clean and paint. Now the seat's off. And I can easily run a wire for that ignition or key switch that I'm going to put in. But it's pretty simple. There isn't much to this thing, you know. I mean, whoever did it before didn't do an awful job, so you know, I guess I can't complain too much. It was, it's fairly decent. So, well, this just got a little bit more interesting because the guy I bought it off of was tall. He was about 6'4", which surprised me about the cart because, you know, generally these things are short, and you end up having to kind of lift your legs up pretty, you know, far, your knees. However, you can see down here, we have the original spots where that used to be. And then you can see this tube that was welded on, this tube all the way down, and this was over here. So now this thing has been extended out, what's this, maybe, you know, 10 inches. I'd have to pull out a ruler, double check it, but measuring. So this whole front end has been extended. You can even see the extensions down here on the rods for the brake and the gas pedals. So this was definitely modified. So now it makes sense why there are the seat slides on here to be able to move the seat back and forth, because it's been extended out enough where if someone short gets on this or a kid, that they wouldn't be able to reach as well. But now they can slide the seat forward or back, which is kind of cool. So I'm definitely going to keep that feature. I definitely need to paint all this stuff up nice so it matches. And try to make sure I cover up and paint where this, you know, it's got rust spots already. So I'm just going to paint it all Rust-Oleum black. And, you know, after I clean it up some, just to kind of coat it and make it hopefully a little better as far as lasting longer. And it was missing a nut here on the gas pedal assembly, so I just put a lock nut on here, you know, the nylon lock nut, so it'll at least hold it and still be able to move it. But yeah, that's kind of cool, because I sat on it with the seat and I'm like, wow, this is fairly comfortable for a little go-kart, because they're usually not all that comfortable to sit in. To do a quick weld job on this bracket here, that brace for the back, it had snapped over here. The old weld had broken, and then it was 3/4 broken down here. So I welded that back up, and now just did a quick paint job. You know, rattle can just to kind of make everything look clean. Same thing with the back of the seat. So when everything goes back on, it'll all look good. And like I said before, I'll be doing the same thing over here. Raining like hell today, so I won't be doing it today, but I did a quick paint job on the cart. Gonna end up doing probably another coat after this, just trying to get it cleaned up so it looks halfway decent. And I did some work on the cart seat sliders, the rails. And let me get this out of the way here so you can see a little bit better. So got these all cleaned up and working nice, and then I'll put a light coating of grease or something on these. I hate to put any kind of heavy grease because of where they are, and it's a go-kart, so all kinds of dirt and crap is going to get in there. So I'm going to have to think about that. I may just use some white lithium grease or just some of the silicone spray I have. So we'll see once I reinstall them what I do before I end up installing them. So I just wired in the new kill switch. As you can see, got a little bit of wire loom. Goes down and around up here now to under here with the kill switch running there. Now I like these kill switches in general for a couple of reasons. One is that I can use them two ways as far as keeping them with just the old school silver look. And then they also have these covers that can go on it, and that can, I mean, here's the difference is it kind of look more towards like a factory setting there, and over here in the golf cart you can see kind of the old school way. What I don't like about these is that a lot of times I am using these as a kill switch, grounding out an engine or something just to shut something down. So you can see on the switch itself it has off and on here, so they have it kind of keyed down the back of this, and also a little nub on the label, you know, the little metal label thing. So when you slide that on into that little keyway, it goes on is on, off is off on the switch, which is the backwards of what we want to do when we're grounding something. So I ended up taking a little file and I just grind that down, swap it around. I swap the whole switch around so that when you flick this on, it's technically it's off, but it shows the on position, and that basically will give you the ground. So if I flick this switch on here to the on position, it is not grounding the motor. I can start it up, and then when I shut it down into the off position, then it makes the contact, grounds out the motor, and technically the switch is actually the on position. Got the seat bottom started for the cart. Basically I just did a piece of plywood, figured out where I was going to put the bolts in based on where the seat tracks were and where it wouldn't interfere with anything else on the cart, and put the bolts into the piece of wood. I painted the bottom so the bottom would actually have a little bit weather protection. The top is all going to be the seat foam and the vinyl. I'm going to hopefully my daughter will end up doing that pretty soon. I asked her to do it, and so I don't want to just go ahead and do it and take that away from her. So, but what I did was I took this, set it basically where I wanted it, took a hammer, tapped each of the bolts, and then that left the marks where I needed to drill. Drilled the holes, so that is all set basically for once she gets that done. What I want to do right now, I'm a little iffy on this clutch, because after I got the new carburetor and put it on and had it running, this clutch spun all the time, even at idle. So what I'm going to do is take all this off, and like I don't like this setup here. This is kind of something doesn't make sense. So what I'm going to do is take this off. I am going to, you can see the rust in there, clean it. I will go ahead and try to lube it up a little bit to make sure everything's moving freely. And if it doesn't work, I will end up getting a new clutch. But this has to go, and I'm going to get a bolt to put in here with a spacer so it can hold this in exactly where it should be, the sprocket, instead of sliding back and forth, which I don't want. I don't know why they even have this on there, if that was their easy way of trying to start it or something, I don't know. But that's gonna go. Hopefully I don't have to sink money into a new clutch. We're gonna see if this one actually can be salvaged. So that's what I'm gonna... Well, I was able to find a spacer here to put on here, and a different nut, a different bolt with a washer. It's the correct thread. It was a hair long, but it actually worked out well because the spacer I had was kind of big, and it just happened to be one I had lying around. I've got a couple of them. I try to keep a bunch of stuff. You know, I watch a guy all the time, Musty. He's out of New Hampshire, Musty1 on YouTube, and Low Buck Garage. And you know, they're guys after my own heart. They literally will keep just about all the parts that might be good for something. And I do that too as well, because when I need something, I can go grab it out of some kind of bin and look around to see what might work. Anybody can throw money at stuff. So what I've got though, I've got a little bit of play, which I think will be okay, because it still lines up nice in between those with this sprocket. And if it becomes an issue, then I'll do something different. I'm a little concerned that if it does drift, it will go up against this spacer here and might cause an issue. But hey, I won't know until I try it and find out. So I'm probably going to start the motor, and just to see if this clutch is any better than it was before. And hopefully it has now freed up a little bit better, and the springs inside have been freed up. Still a little bit of rust in there, but I was able to spray them all down and then work them with a screwdriver to get the clutch mechanisms moving decent. Well, I walked over to the little bench I have over there where the snap ring pliers are, and I was like, hey, I forgot to put the snap ring back on. So I grabbed that, pulled this back off, put the snap ring back on, and now there's almost no play whatsoever. So this is kind of how it should be. I think that's going to work out good. I don't have any play as far as before. I had that little bit you saw where it would possibly move enough to jump that sprocket. I don't think it's going to jump any sprockets now. I think it's going to be perfect. Yeah, probably should have paid attention to that, and I would have probably found out the hard way the first time I popped that chain off. The snap ring itself, this spacer would have kind of kept everything on, but that was just enough to give it just the perfect spacer with this on there to keep everything nice and tight now. Well, relatively tight. You kind of want a little bit of play. Well, I meant to show the work being done on the seat. Like I said, my daughter just didn't have the time to get out here and do it, and I just needed to get it done. However, yesterday, a buddy of mine, his son was picking up his car here that I've been storing for a while until he got it registered. And when he showed up with a friend of his, they had hit something on the way, and his exhaust was kind of low hanging down on an old car he bought, and he ended up ripping off the good portion of the front of that exhaust and bending the pipe. So while my buddy's kid was cleaning up his car and washing it and everything up front, I brought his friend's car down here in front of my garage, and him and I worked on it for probably a good 4 hours. The pipe was just a mess. I ended up having to cut it off. It had ripped off at the flange up front. And he's a nice young kid. He just, doesn't have much money. So, and none of us really did when we were young. So I wanted to try to help him out to, he could at least get back on the road, not have to get towed. and possibly not have to get his car fixed. I mean, he only paid like $600 for the car, a month and a half ago. It's kind of a beater. So, long story short, I always have extra pipe around here and old pipe stuff from different projects. And between cutting, welding some pipe together, that are already pre-curved pipes in different angles, and then I have a set of those Harbor Freight, like the manual pipe spreaders. I've had them for, I can't even tell you how many years, 20 years. And they've come in handy a bunch of times. And it's at the point even where the O-rings have broken off. I've had to try to makeshift new O-rings on it. But so we put a pipe spreader on one end, on the very one that has to go up towards the flange, because normally there's a actual flange that bolts up to the front pipe. And, we didn't have that. I didn't have that. So, I just spread it out. We clamped everything down really good. Used my my air impact and sucked those clamps down real tight, and did a makeshift hanger underneath it. And he's back on the road. So it's good to help out young guy. And he was really interested in learning. He was under the car helping out. And really excited about about doing stuff. So, I guess to get back to it here on the seat for the kart, I ended up just doing a quick down and dirty seat. The only thing I shaped a little bit was just a small little shape here, and cut that a little bit at a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a curve. I mean, it came out okay. Not the best, but honestly, it's a kart. It's just an old ass beater, old school go-kart. So I'm just glad to have that finished. Now, I think you saw in the other video it had where I had the wood. I had cut out a piece of plywood for the base of it, and then drilled through, made the marks, went through, drilled through the bottom of the metal plate, and then I just used some hard seat foam. I've had hard seat foam left over from other projects, and I just used an electric carving knife to carve it out, and then used the vinyl. I have some sticky tack spray that I just used to help keep the vinyl in place when I was setting it in. Same thing with the foam on the plywood. And so now that is at least all bolted down. It's a seat. It's a lot better than sitting, and bouncing around on a plate of steel metal. So next thing I'm going to do real quick, I am going to bolt the whole seat into place. I have to bolt not just the seat back onto the frame, but the slides, the seat slides. I have to get those in, and then tighten all those up in the location they're going to be. And then once this is done, I'm going to move it outside and give the whole kart a test and see how it goes. We are moving on with the go-kart. So, as I mentioned before, this Predator is pretty shot. It will not stay running once it gets any load on it at all. And my guess is because they beat the crap out of this thing when they ended up removing that governor, and it appears it was just almost running to the ground. Even with 2 carb changes, there's something wrong, and it's not worth me battling with that motor anymore. I picked up this slightly better Predator motor, the 224 max performance model, and I think I got it for like, I don't know, $125 on their sidewalk sale, and I am going to install that on here. I am not going to remove the governor on this one because I don't want the same thing happening to this. And, who knows who's going to be riding it. And if somebody that's riding it doesn't know any better, they will basically run the RPMs up way too high. So I'm not going to film the removal of this one. It's pretty straightforward. I just got to pull that bolt, take the chain off, remove the clutch, and then unhook the linkage here for the throttle. And then down here, you just kind of remove the bolts on the base. And then I'm going to get this one put in place. I will end up filming though how I hook up and modify the throttle linkage and install the clutch assembly onto this shaft. But for now, I'm just going to start ripping this one apart. So the clutch assembly was pretty basic. I've got here a bolt in here and a spacer I added in because they didn't have the correct spacing on the old setup and the chain kept coming off. So this comes out, it's keyed. So I took this all apart though. You probably won't have to, especially with a brand new one. I took it apart to clean it. So it's got these retaining clips here. You just use some retaining clip pliers, pull these apart. There's also one inside that holds the clutch mechanism together. I took that apart too, gave it a quick cleaning. And then as you can see down inside, there's a little keyway. I'm sure you, there you can see it. And then that keyway just goes right here into that slot. I'm gonna slide it forward once you get it lined up. And that goes on. Like I said, right now I got this tightened by hand. And then over here, once this is done, we start doing some work on the kill switch because I have a kill switch mounted up near the steering wheel and I want to have both kill switches working. So I'm actually going to take this apart right here right now. You can take this right off. This is your basically your low oil sensor, and what it does is it'll shut the motor off if this comes, gets a signal in there from the when the motor thinks it's getting low on oil. And you might get that on a mini bike or go-kart if you were flying around and doing stuff, and there's a slight chance it'll cause it to shut down, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to take this unit right off, and then I'm just going to hook stuff back up. This I will tape off to the side and put some tape on it so it doesn't accidentally hit anything. And the rest of the wires, basically we're going to end up doing is, I already did a quick splice over here off of the kill switch. So on the kill switch we have one wire that's going to go over to the wherever I want to ground it to, whichever bolt on there, and the other one's going to tie right into that factory harness over there, the little bullet connector there, and then that should enable both those kill switches to work. And all I'm going to do now is mount this motor back in where it was. I marked the same spots on the old one where I already had it lined up where I wanted it to. So I'm going to put the other motor back in, bolt it in, put the bolts in from underneath, tighten them down, and then start working on getting the throttle set up and the all the wiring hooked back up. Once I get the chain back on and aligned where I want to, then I will tighten down that bolt on the end of the clutch. The other thing I need to do before I mount this as well is I need to turn this recoil pull handle, because if you leave it like that, it hits the back of the seat. So you need to turn it so it faces up so you can easily pull it. And that's just a matter of undoing these 3 bolts, turning the unit, and then bolting it back down. Right, pretty much buttoned back up. What I didn't do, I didn't bother filming the wiring over here with the kill switch because it's kind of, was already in place roughly. The majority of it was all in place. And it doesn't, it wouldn't have given you the whole scenario of how to do it. If you do a quick search on it, there's probably 100 videos people showing you how to wire up the kill switch to the Predator. and I use an inline spark tester. You just plug it onto the spark plug, plug that into the boot, and I had spark no problem when the kill switch is on, and also this kill switch is on, and then if I shut either one of those off, no spark. So that was working properly. Now the next thing I had to do was the throttle linkage, and like I said, I'm not doing this one for to remove the governor, at least not yet. That might be something I do down the road. We'll see how much of a dog this is without it. So, but what you need though, you got to loosen up this nut right here, because if you don't, this throttle linkage is so stiff. It's very, very difficult. So, and then I add just a quick spring, brought it down to the bolt down to here, a return spring, just so this returns nice all the time, and you don't have to worry about it, getting stuck wide open or whatever. And then you just bring your throttle cable back up through here, connect it to here, and then double check that your pedal will actually pull that the whole distance. And I guess once I start tuning this and running it, I may have to make some quick adjustments on that, but I don't think it's going to be much else left to do but throw this air filter on and then gas it up at some point and then give it a run. We having torrential downpours basically the next few days, so I won't be doing it the next few days, but maybe on Sunday or so I can actually take it outside and give it a quick whirl. Alright, we've got the new motor on, and I just did a quick warm up with it. I'm going to fire it up again and take it for a quick ride. And this thing is plenty fast, even with the governor on that motor. I wouldn't take the governor off personally. I just had to tighten up the throttle cable. The clamp that held it down in place had popped up. So just one quick screw, tighten it down, should be good now.